Hi everyone, Savannah here, and in this video I'll be showing you how to create a beautiful rose from start to finish. I'll be using my custom brushes, which I have linked in the description below, as well as a link to the color palette and template that I use for this video. Feel free to follow along and let's get started. First thing we're doing is changing that background, so go ahead and go into layers, select background color, and scroll down until you find the rose color palette. If you downloaded that, we're going to do this very dark grayish green color. Grab that circle blend brush, make a new layer, bring it below the outline layer, and grab this dark yellowy, it says dark yellow orange, but it's a darker greeny, maybe olivey color. And we're just going to add some of that color in the background. We'll blend this out here in a second, but let's just add in some color and make this background a little bit more lively and colorful. And we're going to do the same thing with this other lighter color, lighter greenish color, and just add in the color here in the top right. I'm kind of making it lighter in the top and darker towards the bottom left, as you can see here. And then you can start blending in these colors. Again, you don't have to be super perfect with this. We can grab these colors that are blended in between and blend out even further. I'm just kind of trying to blend the entire page, and then I'll go through another pass and blend out these colors even more. Now that we have that background laid down, we can start adding color to this rose. So we're going to do a new layer above that background layer we just completed. Just grab one of the colors. I'm going to do the pink color, and I'm going to start outlining this rose, and then we'll add details. So make sure you grab that circle brush. You can bring the size of the brush down a little bit, but we're going to outline and fill in this rose. Once I usually get that outline color done, I will turn the outline layer off or the template off and start filling in. And that way I can see where my edges are, if I need to tweak them at this point. It just helps me see it visually. And then once we want to go add in the details, I'll turn that outline layer back on so that I can see where the actual details are going to be when I lay down the next colors. Now that we have that filled in, we can start working on the details. So go ahead and turn the outline layer back on. Alpha lock the rows that we just did, and I'm going to start with this dark pink color. I'm going to start adding in some of these low light, these shadow areas, some of the highlight, and just kind of color block in this rose, and then we'll blend it out petal by petal in the end. But for now, I'm just going to kind of add in the main colors, and then again, we'll work through shading it out. And the main colors I'm using for this are all those pinks, so that dark pink, that mid-tone pink, and that lighter pink, and also those orangey pink colors as well. I will do those more towards the center of the rose. The outer areas of the rose, it's going to be more of these darker pinks, lighter pinks colors that I have in that palette, so that first row. But we're, again, just color blocking here at this point. Now I'm going to start blending some of these outer petals as we go along. And so grab that circle blend brush. I'm going to use this dark color here. And I'm just going to start blending this out a little bit. And I am going to grab colors that have been blended between the two here. So that color that I just grabbed, I just held my finger down, it picked it up on the color picker, and then I'm using that to blend these out a little bit more. It just helps kind of blend those two shades together because they are very different contrast. It helps blend it and make it a little bit more seamless. And I will turn the outline layer off every so often as I'm building out these petals because I want to see, does this look like a petal? Also, you can see I have a couple areas where I didn't add in that color, and so it's a good kind of practice to turn that outline layer off so you can see how your rose or your petals or whatever it is you're working on is shaping up. Do you need to tweak anything before moving on to that next layer? And you'll notice as I'm working on this rose, I'm actually doing everything on the same layer. I'm not doing any different layers for the petals. I'm doing it all in one layer. To me, I feel like it's a little bit easier doing it this approach, especially with something as complex as this rose, trying to figure out what petals in front of the other. And there's just a lot of different layers and components. So doing it on one layer It just works better for me. If you want to do it on different layers, you absolutely could do that as well. That's not a problem at all. It's just your preferred style. But again, I like just doing it all on one layer because I think it's a little bit easier for me to blend it out with how many different petals there are to this rose. And now we will work our way towards the center of the rose here. I'm still using that circle blend brush here for this. You could switch it out to the circle brush if you want to add more blocky shapes and colors in here and then blend it out afterwards. But for now, I'm just sticking with the blend brush, adding in the color, working towards the center of this rose and blending out a little bit as I go. And now I want to add more of those orangey pink colors to this rose because roses have a lot of different colors. And so I'm going to make sure that outline layer is turned on, start adding some of this orange color, some of those pinky orangish colors to the rose, and then we'll work on blending it out. And I'm still using that circle blend brush, but I'm doing it kind of like color blocking like we did with the circle brush on the darker pinks and the mid-tone pinks, but I'm kind of just placing the color around here and then I'll work on blending it all out together in a second. So now it's starting to come to life a little bit. It's starting to look more like a rose. So we're just gonna keep powering through, keep blending out these colors, adding, more colors if you want to, more highlights, more darker tones to bring in those shadows more. Just really start building up these layers one petal by petal until we get it to look like the rose that we want it to look like. And again, as you're blending these out, feel free to grab those colors that are being mixed in between when you're using that circle blend brush. That helps blend these colors out even more seamlessly. And so I usually pull in a lot of those mid-tone colors that are outside the color palette that I provided because again, it just blends it out better. So the outer petals are looking better for me, so I'm going to start working on the center of the rose here, working on these orangey colors here and building this out a little bit more. We're nearly there with this rose. Now we are nearly to the finish line with this rose. With the center, I like to zoom in a little bit because there's a lot smaller detail here. And so zooming in, you can see where exactly you're laying all those colors. It just helps if you're not zoomed out too far for it. Now we have just a little bit left to touch up here before we work on the stem of the rose. one last final detail actually before we go on to the stem is adding a little bit of this light pink to the edges of the rose here. It just makes it pop a little bit more. It gives it a little bit of that lightness that we're looking for the edge here. And so we're going to add some of that to the petals here, and then we'll work on the stem. And there we have our rose. Now let's go ahead and work on the stem. So we're going to add a new layer, put it between the rose layer and the background layer, and grab this lighter green color. I'm just using that to color block because it's easier to see that against the background of that dark green color. And then we will start adding in highlights, shadows, midtones to this to make it come to life a little bit better. And then we'll add some thorns at the end. And I actually ended up making the stem a little too chunky for my liking, but I just went with it and added in the colors here. So make sure you alpha lock that layer. We're going to grab that mid-tone green and we're going to start adding that color to the stem here, and then we'll add some darker tones as well. And I am using that circle brush, not the circle blend brush, but we will grab that circle blend brush here in a second to start blending out. And I usually like, if I'm laying the lighter tone and the darker tone on something skinny like this, I usually like to grab that mid-tone color and start blending it out because that kind of helps blend those two contrasting colors with this kind of mid-tone color. And then I'll go back through and add layers of the darker tones again, just building this up more and more as I go. And now let's turn off the alpha lock layer and add our thorns to this rose. And so I'm using that brownish color. I'm just making triangle kind of shapes that are going, or V shapes that are going left and right, and just adding in as many as I think look good on this stem. And then I do one kind of pass through with that mid-tone green just to kind of blend it out a little bit because it does look like they kind of stick out a little bit on their own. So I just want to blend them in just a smidgen so it looks more natural. And with that, our rose is complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this rose sketch. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see next. Be sure to check out the description for those free templates, the brush downloads, and the outline, and I'll see you all in the next video.